Hello, I'm Dr. Garrett Boyer. Welcome to Gospel Minded, where we spend a few minutes each week talking about psychology, our emotions, behavioral health, and we reflect on how these important topics are related to the gospel reading for each Sunday. Like I point out every week, this isn't any kind of substitute for actually getting yourself to church or participating in counseling, therapy, spiritual direction, if you're engaged in those sort of practices. But like we know so well, and like we've seen, things of the mind and our psychology so often go beautifully hand in hand with our spirituality. And so, if you're new to Gospel Minded, welcome. Please subscribe so that you never miss an episode. And if you've already subscribed, welcome back. All right, so here we are, moving along through ordinary time, still in Mark's Gospel, and today it starts in chapter 9, verse 38. I'm going to read these first few lines. It says, John said to him, "Teacher, we saw a man casting out demons in your name, and we forbade him because he was not following us." But Jesus said, "Do not forbid him, for no one who does a mighty deed in my name will be able to speak evil of me. For he that is not against us is for us. For truly I say to you, whoever gives you a cup of water to drink because you bear the name of Christ will by no means lose his reward." And the gospel goes on for today, but what a fascinating exchange there between John and Jesus. So here the disciples are doing all these mighty deeds in the name of the Lord, and they see somebody else doing wonderful things. But they weren't following the disciples, and they weren't with Jesus. And so the thought is, well, why should that person be able to do this? They're not one of us. And Jesus says, don't prevent them from doing good work. If they're not against us, they are for us. Wow, what a fascinating revelation. And I think that it's something that is relevant for you and me, and something that we should really ponder and take seriously. Now, in the gospel today, there's no indication that John or the disciples were experiencing envy or jealousy necessarily. But man, I think that's a relevant topic for you and I to consider. Because you and I so often work hard to put our best foot forward, to perform well, to be the best we can be at work, at home, with our families, with our peers or contemporaries and friends. And what happens so often is we see somebody else getting recognized at work for doing a job well done. Or we see other people really flourishing and thriving with their families. Or we see others with this robust friend group who have so many connections. We start to think, well, what have they done to deserve this? What are they doing that I'm not doing? And man, is it easy for envy and jealousy to creep in. And we know the havoc that those two things can bring about in our life. So let's spend some time talking about what exactly envy and jealousy are, and what they might look like, and what we can do to try to avoid these things and get ourselves on the right track if we're experiencing envy or jealousy. So, kind of classically understood, envy is distinct from jealousy in that envy has an element of admiration as well as discontent. So if I see somebody who has achieved something or done something or has earned something or gotten a reward or has something that I don't have, there might be an element of admiration that I have. I think about, the person who's a great football star. When I was a kid, I was no good at football. But man, did I look at the dudes who were good at football. I was envious of their skill because they were really good at what they did. And there was this element of admiration that I had. Like, wow, I want what that person has. And so that's what envy can start to look like. There's discontent with where I am at, and an admiration and a desire for what somebody else has. And this can be physical, it can be spiritual, it can be intellectual, it can be, any number of things. We can envy a lot of things. And that's distinguished from jealousy, which is understood more appropriately as a completely negative kind of emotion, which can lead to resentment, distrust. I mean, when we talk about the jealous person, there's not even really an admiration there. It's more encompassing and negative through and through. So both envy and jealousy can become really problematic. But whereas envy has this sense of wanting to get something more, jealousy, kind of defined in the literature, is this fear that even what you have will be taken away. And so you think about the person who's jealous, say they see a coworker getting rewarded at work. The fear for that person might be that, the admiration that my boss or my peers have for me will now somehow be lessened because this person received an award or got a promotion or something. So if you have ever been one to experience envy or jealousy, perhaps you know just how challenging some of those emotions can be. And when we think about envy and jealousy from the model of cognitive behavioral therapy, we can see that it impacts us on all those different levels. It can impact our thoughts, certainly, our emotions, our behaviors. So what could that look like? Take, for example, a baseball player. So we went to a baseball game today, and today is the last day of the regular season in baseball. I was at home watching some of the games from the Major League season wrap up, and the Los Angeles Angels had at the end of the game today their awards ceremony for their own organization. And the players voted on who they believed was the MVP, the most valuable player of their team, who is the most useful or most valuable pitcher on their team, and they were doing this awards ceremony. Lovely. I guarantee you that there were some envious and or jealous people on that team. So what happens when we have envy? Other person's name gets called. That person did well at second base, but I played shortstop and I did just as well. I had maybe even fewer errors. Maybe I even had more base hits. And I start to think that negative thought, like, well, what is it about me? Why didn't they pick me? And that thought distortion could be, is there some problem with me? Why am I so bad? Am I some kind of dirtbag? Am I not popular? Am I not liked? Am I really that bad of a baseball player, or that bad of an athlete that I couldn't even get picked for MVP? And we see how this thought distortion can start to spiral out of control pretty darn quickly. And then connected to that, then the distorted thoughts then are the emotions. So if your thoughts are, what's my problem? Am I such a bad player? What do you think the emotions connected to that would be? Perhaps sadness. You might feel like depressive kind of symptoms, lower mood, unhappiness, anger perhaps, and frustration. And then when this gets to be really bad, you might notice your behaviors change, because envy and jealousy can impact our thoughts, our emotions, and our behaviors. Perhaps a more mild way of seeing this manifest would be the other player's name gets called for MVP. And instead of clapping and cheering with that person, you scowl and don't participate in the celebration and the fun. But perhaps even worse is you could sabotage your teammate. Oh, how terrible would that be? And yet these sort of things happen because envy and jealousy can drive folks to do some pretty harmful and reckless things. So what do we do? What do we do when we are experiencing envy, and we have some of these things come up, like the poor self-esteem that can come from it, the anxiety, the depressive symptoms, the relationships that can be harmed because of it. There are some things that we can do to try to rectify this and remedy this according to the literature. First of all, when we are experiencing distorted thoughts related to envy or jealousy, catch yourself in the midst of that and call it out. Recognize it for what it is and label it as a distorted thought. Because that person was voted as the MVP of my baseball team, that doesn't take away anything of what I have contributed. And my contributions were still very good. Even though that person is being recognized as the MVP, what they have achieved and accomplished doesn't take anything away from me or from what I have done. We can practice gratitude. When those thought distortions start running wild, we can get really low and negative on ourselves and forget about all the things that we are good at and what we can be really grateful for. Wow, so practicing gratitude can really be an excellent way to help us when we start getting on these unhelpful paths that envy or jealousy can lead us towards. We can try to increase our own self-awareness and accept that this is where we're at. Perhaps the Angels MVP today was selected because they really were the most valuable player. And maybe as a ball player, I'm not there right now. So having that awareness of this is where I'm at and accepting that this is where I'm at, perhaps that can be fuel and motivation to get better. I had a coach when I was a kid who always used to say, don't get mad, get better. And, there's some stuff about that quote that I really like and think is useful for this conversation. And then practicing empathy, putting yourself in somebody else's shoes. Somebody just got chosen by their teammates as the MVP. Somebody just got promoted at work. Your neighbor just won the lottery. I don't know. But if you are to put yourself in their shoes, you would want somebody to celebrate a success that you have with you. Why wouldn't you do that with somebody else and for somebody else? So yeah, other people are living their best life too and putting their best foot forward. Other people are doing mighty deeds and good things in the Lord's name. And the Lord says, do not prevent them. They're not against us, they're for us. So be for each other. We're all on this journey together. Hope you found this helpful today. If you have different thoughts or additional commentary, please drop me a note in the comments. But otherwise, I'll look forward to seeing you next week here on Gospel Minded. I'm Dr. Garrett Boyer. Take care.